art of finding one's divinity on a personal level. In general, these next 2 lunar weeks, from 7/29 to 8/13, are about acknowledging, appreciating, and reaping the spoils sown during spring's early plantings of seeds, most broadly speaking, which makes appropriate sense, since this is when dearly beloved Mother Nature cues us to actually pursue what's ripe and ready for picking, aka the first harvest Sabbat, otherwise known to the Vikings as Lammas. So to literally and metaphorically speak, which just so happens to be and or begin when our venerable sun is at 15 degrees of Leo. 'Tis the time when one's innermost self emerges from deep within itself. And wouldn't you know it, deliciously synchronized with the waning of this year's luscious strawberry moon, no less. Whereas the last lunar half-month period had drawn us deep into unconscious matters and realms, the next lunar period alerts one to stand within that which was learned then as a prerequisite for same and further steps ahead. And never are Mother Nature's laws more evident, present, and powerfully able to enact radical change in one's life than right now, as is the cyclical case every year thusly. And it comes with no surprise, a warning label no less, as in, this period contains chaotic forces which can be self-destructive if not handled properly. Hence reason for lessons or instructions learned from the last 2 lunar periods in order to apply them in a congruent and orderly fashion here and now, for educational and safety's sake, of course. It's all part of Her Majesty's curriculum vitae, prerequisites and or preparation for us to deal with the prickly and or sticky situations that come with picking thornberries and fragile frigaria. As the analogous case may be, precautionary measures. So to preemptively speak, after all, 'tis the season's first harvest, and if you don't know what you got, or don't pluck what you planted now, it'll just go to waste and get weedy, and there'll be less to go around next year, naturally. And though one might rightly expect to get poked or scratched, it's likely not because one was or is careless or caught off guard, per se. Rather, it's more indicative of some unrequited need not being met, lurking on the precarious edge of one's consciousness or shadows. But poke around one must, for precious jewels are there to be plucked and found. Okay. Although it be just a little pinprick, there'll be no more than one can stomach, but you may feel a little sick, if not ecstatic. Then again, one can't pretend you didn't nor don't see it coming, unless not paying attention or been skipping class for the better part of one's life, or maybe you simply don't know better by now. Oy vey. Ultimately, the core of every educational experience is meant to teach one how to turn pesky thorns into useful nails, threatening splinters into conducive kindling, and burning flames into fabulous flowers of creation. In a nutshell, tempering for thy soul and the best living practice. You know the drill. Here and therein lie the protective gear and aspects one should be aware of and familiar with in order to be appropriately outfitted for these next 2 weeks in particular. And there's a damn good reason why some things or certain information is and or are stored in the unconscious, for one can't process it without the developmental faculties necessary to work with them in the first place, or at least not until one has created or grown a formative narrative around them, or acumen and knowledge thereof to cope and or deal with them properly. It's elementary, if not vitally crucial. In short, it's big stuff. In fact, so much so, those unconscious things purposefully remain shelved until one is actually ready and certain of one's own innate ability to handle and manage such things in one's conscious awareness. That's what tests are there for. Therefore, just know this about that. Though individually different, one is never, ever subjected to tests beyond one's destined capability, because thou art the judge, jury, and executor of same. So, just a friendly heads-up reminder. Do your homework reviewing, for one's shadows are coming to bear, or to fruition. Refer to July 17th post. Might as well be ready to deal with them on own terms, just in case. However, just as that which consumes can potentially destroy, it can likewise be made to create fantastic things. And if the last lunar half-month period taught us anything about the devouring nature of primal or giant forces, then the next lunar bi-week is one's wake-up call to proactively do something which fosters thy most desired outcome. The art of creating something from seemingly nothing. Just follow Mother Nature's lead. She can't and won't steer you wrong, progressing ever so naturally in the most developmentally appropriate, growth-oriented manner possible. After all, 'tis by her design things live and die, as they do and have done since time immemorial. Certainly not due to some imaginary pie-in-the-sky deity. Please, dearly beloved Mother Nature is the creator and destroyer of everything and all. The first and foremost lesson being Behu, as in always tend to one's sacred self. Be aware of the vast depths glimpsed therein, for nothing manifests from stagnation, no matter the situation. Refer to 629's post this time. Only then can one truly honor their shadow side. Secondly, Ul, as in always remember, taking control in the process of creating and or recreating oneself is a matter of enlisting and enforcing one's shadows, regardless of what's happening externally and or within oneself even. 'Tis an innate and formidable power all sentient beings have. Ironically, or more counterintuitively, the aspects of shadow one fears the most aren't those icky, terrifying, and unsavory parts of self one can't stand and yet tolerates. Oh no, for what one fears more deep down inside are the empowering and powerful aspects of self. One has the potential to release, albeit individually unique to each individual. Problem being cultural indoctrination into fearing power for want of showing faults. The irrational fear instilled being conditioned can be summoned thusly. How can one grasp the nuances of experience, wisdom, and or value if one is but a work in progress? Well, one can and does. That's why you call it a practice. Though perfection can never be achieved, expertise can. And yet claiming to be a professional in any something is a hobble of a misnomer, to be sure. While specializing in but one thing is as grave a liability as shooting oneself in the other foot for stubbing one's toe. It's got to make sense to be sensible, because within this next lunar half-month period, specifically, one is about to become acutely aware of the double-barreled nature of still other forces coming into play, which may alter one's personal plans dramatically or radically, depending on perception of same. Then again, as just highlighted above, no matter how or what happens, one can remain firmly seated behind the wheel. Nevertheless, that is, if one understands or understood the material you've been given, laid out here and therein, via the calendarized staves of the Elder Firthark. The actions and choices of others matters not. What does matter is keeping one's hands or a handle and eyes on the road and steering wheel at all times. So to life coachingly speak, besides, wouldn't you rather be your own driver than a helpless passenger taken for a ride? But just like you gotta dig and sift through a lot of dirt to find any real gems, such is the inherent nature of these 2 lunar weeks. A time of sorting through brambles and thorn patches for the cherry pickings. Just think of it as stockpiling delicious jams and savory preserves, not as a chore or something to abhor, for herein finds one the sweetest things in life to live for and enjoy. Alas, such is the nature of self-directed change. It can either be consuming to the point of devouring, or one can strike it rich, rise above it, while the irons are hot and molten, so to forge ahead. Yeah, although it may seem like a great big pain in the ass, come what may, it ain't dangerous, but rather more akin to a pinch or prod, a reality check and reminder that this too shall pass and help one become stronger still with subsequent quenching. And that, above all, thou still hath a say in how one molds and recovers from it all. Tempering always gives the increase, simply via engaging one's sacred self, followed by embracing one's shadows, ye foundational exercises which lay the groundwork in preparation for this here initiation, or rite of passage at hand. And approached any other way is like stepping blindly into an AP exam, where failure is guaranteed, because one simply can't cheat their fucking way through life for very long, let alone succeed by errant hits and misses. It's got to be earned, for nothing in life is given. And yet, in spite of this half month's consuming and devouring nature, it does not portend destruction, disintegration, or disruption, or even an end, but rather it signals and signifies time to bear any and all dynamics as carefully and gently as possible, whilst being mindfully willing to redirect given forces in order to stimulate change or progress within the given system, situation, or process one may be subjected to, lest ye digress or retard. Ultimately, one has no one to blame or commend but self. On the most basic or primary level, the key here is to act or react openly and not panic. Keep it organic and yet in and under control. Thou art not a child no more, and this is neither the time nor the place for habitual tendencies, rote or routine, let alone pat reactions. Granted, it ain't easy to remain calm and cool and still stay composed and dignified enough to make the right calls or decisions under any duress, let alone preside with one's heart, with everything one is otherwise expected to accomplish or be. But such is the nature of an all-inspired life, where, like self-actualization, 'tis an arduous and rare achievement, and an ongoing affair indeed. We are all meant to and need to do. And that, my friends and fellow cohorts, is exactly what's expected of one here and now. It's tantamount to a must. For if one truly wants to live a dignified and distinguished life with distinction, one needs to change how one sees oneself. See, it be ye most tasty harvest to behold and reap, while the fruit is ripe and ready for the picking off thine vine. And, might I suggest, wearing gloves too. Then again, y'all should already know what to do if you know what's good for you. THURISA.